The more you try to keep me down and keep my head above the water, you can never hold me down. The more you try to block me out, that's where I kick the wall down. You can never hold me back. The more you try to put me out, the more I'll be blazing, it's too hot. The more you try to put me in the dirt, increase my work, the expert. You see the hunger in the eyes of a survivor.
Hey everybody, it's Casey with Pinecase. Today I'm hanging out with Benjamin Howells. I'm super excited to have you on today because way back when, and sorry to kind of start off strong, but I'm super curious about, there's like this mythical, for anybody that's on Vancouver Island right now, you guys might know what I'm talking about. Can we talk about Carrington?
Yeah, for sure. We could chat about Carrington. Carrington Bay is a location on Cortes Island, Klahoose traditional territories, where I grew up. It's a location where I sort of lived temporarily with my parents when we first moved to the island, and also a location where there was a long-running bush party rave that took place out there for quite a few years.
Yeah, it's so neat because when Calico and I were talking about this, I was like, okay, when it comes to legends, especially for like the West Coast, you know, Vancouver Island music scene, Carrington Bay was always one of these things that no one seemed to know about, but everyone seemed to know about. And if you knew, you like went religiously. And if you didn't know, you could be the neighbor or you could be like the parent of somebody. Like it was just such an illusion to people that never went. And I found it so interesting that I never seen any advertising for it. But then I would go back to school and everyone was like, oh my God, Bob. I'm like, what? Wait a second. How is this happening? Like, how do you have like such a massive event, basically word of mouth?
Yeah. I mean, it started off in an era before social media, so, and it had ebbs and flows. I guess first off, shout out to the probably hundreds of people over the 23 years or so. It was sort of a centrally organized event, large enough that required sort of central organization and you know, harm reduction and water and things like that. People go down there individually here and there still, so it's always it still is a location that people enjoy as well. But yeah, it went on for a lot of years, and it was in accordance with early rave kind of times. As well, there was early events over on Hornby Island when Moon Tribe were sort of the first early traveling DJ crews that came to Vancouver Island. They landed on Hornby for a few events, and Cortez sort of picked up that, and as well as Texada. And a lot of us coastal kids sort of went to each other's events via boat. The Texada, the Speedy kids would come to Cortez, and Cortez Quadra kids would go over that way and share our travels via the ocean in the early times. And it was a lot of fun for sure. I guess the second part of that is we actually sort of, a lot of us kind of, I mean, my memory is not the best because I'm only one person, and there was so many people that took part, but I believe a lot of us joined Facebook to try to not promote the event because it became apparent that the land down there can only really sustain the right amount of people. You need the right amount of people so you have that energy through the night, so you have that dance floor that moves where people can join together and sort of maintain a collective energy. So you need enough bodies and energy to sustain a genuine rave. At the same time, the site really isn't comfortable with more than a certain amount of people, and once you get above a certain amount, it becomes logistically more difficult, and you dramatically increase the potential for injuries and various incidents. And the nature of the location is quite steep, jagged, intense. So it
Right.
had its different sort of fluctuations over the years of how people got there and the type of people that went there. Over 13 years that I was sort of there as one of the key people. We definitely saw like a lot. It would take two. We could talk for hours about the very subtleties of how it shifted throughout the years. But it's a core place for a lot of us, and we love it for sure.
Yeah, it's such an amazing place. I actually had the privilege of going there when there wasn't a rave, and so I kind of checked it out. I was astonished that people were out there having a great time, enjoying the, you know, all the things that it had to offer, which includes like a massive body of water running through it, if I'm correct, right? Like there, and you didn't really hear a whole ton of like incidences. And now maybe that's just because it wasn't talked about, but it seems like you guys did a really great job at kind of finding that happy number on what was appropriate.
Yeah, I mean, I think different people would have varying sort of takes on that. I think we did what we could, and we had some fun and silly ways of lowering numbers to sort of when we felt like we were getting too popular. And I definitely myself, as well as others, had to sort of be that annoying person that would try to, boss people around and make them take their social media posts down. And
Right.
sometimes we did some clever, slightly real, not so real fights where we say, okay, it's never going to happen again, and kind of, and then do it a month earlier the next year. Make rumors that we were, I don't know, lots of different things. We'd kind of play with different, almost anti-marketing, and ironically, it was one of the reasons why I joined Facebook was to. There was a big influx year, and it was a year when Facebook really kind of pumped in, and I was forced into taking part. I don't know the year, 2003 or four or something, seven, I don't know. And
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, ironically, then yeah, little did I know down the road I would end up sort of using it as my main tool for actual promotions over the years. And for quite a few years, we just did Carrington once a year because it was our home and it was something we cared about and loved. And we'd do it in the summer in between tree planting.
Wow. Oh, that's great. I love that you came out using that as a way to like lower the numbers. And I mean, now we all use it as a tool for everything. It just seems like it's like, if you don't have social media, then I don't want to say it's challenging to make these events happen, but I would love to see more events kind of go. I've been using the word like Underground Railroad, and I know that might be inappropriate when we're talking about like not historical events. However, I love the idea of like that kind of prohibition Underground Railroad, sense. I heard about Carrington from a guy on a bike in a park one time. That's like, you know, like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, shout out to Stoney. I don't know what he's up to these days, but he was like just doing what he was doing, and I was doing what I was doing. And I just still to this day, it's like ingrained in my mind that like that's how we should experience these things. Like it's such a great feeling. I felt like I was part of something and that I like had some
Mm.
secret knowledge, and so I would like to see events kind of get back to that a little bit. But yeah, congratulations on all of that, because it was super super neat. I definitely think it's part of like the island story. When you were mentioning harm
Yeah.
reduction though, like what did harm reduction look like back then? Because it obviously that has evolved a lot over the years, but what did it look like back then?
Um, yeah, I mean, it was different, you kind of, I mean, I think there's a few different ways to sort of, I would just, subjectively break it into a few different categories. You have like pre-fentanyl, post-fentanyl, which is
Right. Yeah.
probably the biggest cut off in harm reduction. It very quickly, rapidly shifted some of the harm reduction methods from chuck them in the recovery position. Oh, they're breathing well. A little bit of snoring now, not the end of the world. Okay, check them again. Type harm reduction when it's come to alcohol or when it comes to drugs, drug type, semi OD, and now post fentanyl. It's like anyone that's remotely semi conscious. There's just a much more fast and stringent series of processes from a medical perspective that take place. So for myself in Carrington, all of that harm reduction was pre-fentanyl. And we brought Carrington from a 1-day kind of crazy party to a multi-day party. And there was some growing pains when we did that. Some of those growing pains were that just, we realized that some of the most important things about harm reduction, which are often maybe not always considered, but embedded in liquor license law, like food, sustenance, the proper time that's being ingested over a period of time, and just certain physical parameters around those things that help with harm reduction. So I think from in respect to Carrington, I think we fumbled along and got better and better at it. Ultimately, with Carrington, it was really apparent to me as a tree planter and someone who worked in remote places that my main source, my main role there was a lot of things, but the official role was I was communications with emergency services. So because I would sort of communicate with the RCMP ahead of time, and I would sort of communicate with fire wardens in the various sort of levels and make sure certain people knew what was going on. And I would take sort of the brunt of because people would always want to sort of say, well, who's in charge? And we kind of would never really say who was in charge. And because there wasn't any one specific person in charge, there was lots of people that all contributed, and an ebb and a flow of people that came and went over the years that contributed when they could, and when they couldn't, they didn't. And that's the event was the longest running free event probably ever in that category. And the reason why is because you just had people that just worked hard every year to make it happen. Sorry, I feel like I got lost on that one, but
no, it's totally fine. I mean, it's hard not to talk about it in like, a sentimental way. And when you start looking at the numbers like that, like obviously we're in a place now where we can kind of see what's happening all over the place, and it's amazing. I'm so impressed, especially what's happening on the West Coast right now. The festivals and the music scene, it's blossoming and flourishing, and it has a voice, and it's really impressive. But that wouldn't be without people like you who went and put in the sweat equity and created that standard. I mean, because it wasn't just Carrington, right? I mean, you were doing, like, I can't remember that place. Was it the Max? Where were you DJing all the time? And we did the Max, and we moved into the Waverly. And I mean, let's fast forward with Atmosphere Gathering, Cumberland Wild, but fast forward to say Pachena, the most recent one that we've designed, which is a lot of the same characters that have been around from the beginning. And, part of to tie it into harm reduction, in designing Pachena Bay, we want to have more live music on Sunday, no silent disco and late night, no, really kind of have this festival where on the Sunday, instead of it being like, oh, I stayed up all night on the Sunday to Monday morning and I made the festival, it's more like you have that crescendo moment a little earlier on Sunday, and then people can feel comfortable to sleep, because one of the overarching harm reduction designs of Pachena is that everyone has to hit the road on Monday. Right.
And it's just a numbers game. It's not like complicated. It's not like you don't need a rocket degree or psychology degree to just look at total. If you're thinking truly long term, and that's what I am. I think 10 years or 20 years. And I believe over 10 years or 20 years, if we don't have a bunch of crazy music going on at 1 a.m. on Sunday to 3 a.m. on Sunday, literally lives are saved over a 10 or 20-year period if that event took place over that period of time. And it's like probability and math. It's like, it's not anything special. Like I didn't talk to the gods about it or anything. It's just like basic. So that's like one structural piece, and a lot of harm reduction is built into the structure.
Yeah.
The food, the type of food, the messaging that takes place, setting the tone, setting the stage, um, creating the container that people go into to experience one another, and that it's lit in a way conducive to good communications, and that there's all of the staff, and that there's this communication both like on that casual level, but also very strong, like structural, procedural communication between all the crews. And you have these like good people in places, and all of the pieces that kind of build that and create that organism or that container. I think of it more like an organism than I think of it like a container. But when you're designing it, you're sort of creating a container. But I sort of think of it more like an organism, and the organism kind of fluctuates throughout the weekend depending on the situation. And the total amount of liters of water that everyone can drink and food they can eat, it all plays into the collective sort of behavior and just performance of that organism. So I could literally kind of go into little rabbit holes on that.
But like, just a quick recap. I mean, when you're talking of like, when you said like liquor licensing, so that's, I mean, that's basics, just like what you have access to, right? And then to say like, to have, you know, maybe the of the, I don't want to say like the highlight or like the headliner or whatever, but like to maybe push that on to Sunday, where everyone isn't like getting lit on Friday. I mean, those things, they sound like they would be common sense, but they're not. You see it all the time. And so the fact that you have taken the time and, you know, worked some of these things out in a structural way is it. Yeah, it's super impressive. And I appreciate hearing it, because it is the standard. Like, do you know that other businesses have actually been sent to some of your events to notice some of these things, me included? Actually, the Tide Mark sent me to Atmosphere when we were looking at getting special event licensing for outdoors, and they were like, okay, we're going to send you in there with a couple of people, go enjoy the event, but like see how many trash cans they have, see what when they're kind of like when the music's the loudest, see, and it was just, I mean, obviously, like as a community, that's really great, but to be somebody in the hot seat and thinking these things through is, yeah, I love hearing things like that. It's super important to, yeah, I guess I don't want to be like to appreciate the guests, but at the same time, like you need them and they need you, but it just doesn't happen all the time. And I don't think it's necessarily what people think when the term harm reduction is being tossed around. So it's really refreshing to hear that it's coming from like the foundation up, or I mean, looking at an organism, whichever way you want to look at it. Yeah, it's amazing. So obviously implementing some of these things have created a more successful events for you.
I think so. So I think, just to comment on, like, I think part of it is just over time as well. You learn these things the hard way. And just a quick anecdote, like there was a point in Carrington when we brought this like barge through the gap, and we set up a DJ setup on the barge, and nobody knew it was going to happen, and nobody knew what was going on. But a bunch of us, particularly Justin, who's not with us anymore. Love you, Justin. Him and I got the boat rigged up, and I believe I was paddling and he was DJing, and suddenly we cranked up the music, and people kind of hang out on the inner bay. And we brought the boat along the beach, and we went to this point, and we had this amazing dance party, and it was just one of these epic magical points in time. The sun goes behind the hill a little early because it's north facing, and we just kept going because it was so great. And then it was almost starting to get dark, and we brought the boat back, and everyone had to walk along this rugged shoreline. Right. And then we brought the music right up to the main stage. We had it ready to go. It was all planned out. Everyone got up there all haggard from basically drinking in the sun all day, no shoes, and it was the most chaotic, difficult night we'd ever had in my memory of Carrington. And you really learn when you're running around pulling people out of the bushes and people don't have shoes and they didn't eat dinner. It's a visceral experience of, oh my God, like these people needed to be off the beach 3 hours sooner or 4 hours sooner. So the following year, we did the boat, and that year everyone was ready for it because it wasn't a surprise, and it was like the most epic party over there. Everyone had floaty toys. It's just like a whole stream of people ready and tied to the boat. We paddled like 100 people behind us in floaty toys. But when the sun went behind the hill, it
Yeah.
peaks behind the we turned the music off and we kicked the boat off the shore and we went back, and people were couldn't be disappointed because it was so much fun, but it was very hard to turn it off and to
Right.
leave because it was the most epic beach party you've been to. But we knew when the sun goes behind the hill the second year, we knew that gives people 3 4 hours to like 3 hours before it's night. And before you're in Carrington, you got to walk across that sketchy bridge from the camping area to get over. We need people to go back to their campsite. We need them to reset. Some people need to sit down and go, holy shit, I'm tired.
Right.
Actually, and fall asleep. Or someone needs to shove a hot dog in someone's face. And then they realize I need 2 more hot dogs. And then they go to sleep. So now, fast forward to Pachena. I don't want any renegade stages. I kind of let one go, not last year, but the year before on Sunday. It didn't work out so well. There was actually a call to service. So last year I was like, no renegade parties, nothing. Anyone throw a renegade party, they're blacklisted from my events for a year or something, whatever.
Yep.
No renegade parties. But I gave everybody Justin Martin for an extended long beach set, which was probably a highlight for people. But I
Yeah.
will say I didn't quite learn my lesson because everyone was fine. Pachena's not so rugged, but probably about 40%, maybe I'm exaggerating, of the total lost and found items were all picked up right after Justin Martin's set because it went a little too late. And I made the beach go a little later because it's so epic at Pachena. And
Right.
even with that visceral memory of letting it go too long before, I still let it go because it's like I wanted to give the ravers something good Sunday and then it be done at nightfall. Okay,
Yeah.
you got Justin Martin, no renegades. Come and listen to the funk music. Go to your campsite afterwards. You're not going to carry on till 4 a.m., kind of 5 a.m. on Sunday. But point being, yeah, there was a lot of stuff left behind from that Justin Martin set, and there was a quick transition to the Sunday, and I realized, oh, wait a sec. Even with my experience, I'm like, part of me kind of knew I shouldn't have it go that late. People need a little more time to gather this stuff at nightfall. So whatever, structural things like that.
Yeah. Yeah. And like setting the atmosphere, walking people through their experience. Like, I mean, you really are like the conductor, of all these moving pieces. What are some things that you are like an absolute no for you?
Like at an event.
Yeah.
I mean, there's certain behaviors that are an absolute no, obviously.
Yeah.
There's certain sort of slightly more subtle behaviors that require like a little bit of coaching and a little bit of something to then they get to a point where it's a hard no.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's a few behaviors like serious abuse and violence and things like that that are a hard no for me, for sure. That said, if some form of violence does take place, we are strong proponents on like allowing for a higher level process of calming down and understanding that I personally am like a amateur, whatever. I love neuroscience and evolutionary biology and things like that. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of weird things that go on when our frontal part of our brain is not operational. And I think although over time you can hold someone accountable for that, but singular moments, I think there's some need to at least allow for the reality that there's a few different humans that you're dealing with when you're dealing with any one human,
Yeah.
depending on their how much they've eaten that day, their mental health, their trauma response, where they go when they are triggered, or when there's something that they need, like the inner child in them needs something, and they resort to a behavior style that has worked the best for them so far, and that, isn't necessarily appropriate, and often comes out when that part of the brain isn't processing properly. So I want to have staff that understand that, and that have a empathy for it. Um, but sometimes you do get to a point where an individual or a couple of individuals are just draining too much of the staff's resource and energy, and there's a point where I
Yeah.
need to then, as that conductor, go, okay, this is too much for the organism. We aren't fortified enough to deal with this. This is now a
Yeah.
removal. Like, I don't want to do a dumb cancer analogy, but it's like it's cutting that piece out for lack of a better, like, abilities, basically. And an ejection from the site is like, we've done everything we can. Now we sort of, to a degree, need to leave it up to the professionals.
Yeah, absolutely. And well, and also be like, I mean, that's being considerate to not only your staff, but the other people attending the event, right? Like, yeah. And the safety of that person, I would imagine. I mean, a lot of the times that's actually who gets the most out of being removed. You know what I mean? Like, you're keeping them probably the most safe. So I completely understand that for sure. What are some highlights over the years? Is there like moments I mean, obviously the whole like beach party thing is pretty epic. I don't know how you top that, but is there moments that stick out in your mind that are like, you're never going to be able to kind of like redo that, or like capsulate like the energy and atmosphere that will go out knowing that they were just moments that were epic?
Yeah, it's almost like, when you ask that question, it's almost like you're asking me what the secret sauce to life is. Because being able to exist and absorb the moment, and being present in the moment in a mindful way, in a cognitive way that's mindful and like realistic, um, and being able to be present for moments is such the secret sauce of life. And sort of, drawing alpha from the moment or whatever, or synergizing a moment. So I'm pretty starkly aware of, it's like, the sun is also moving through space, and things are going. So even though the Earth goes around the sun once a year, you're still never in the same place twice, because the sun is moving through the universe. So just because it's November 29th doesn't mean we've been here before, and we never will, in a sense, again.
Yeah.
So yeah, so many moments, moments with people that aren't here with us anymore.
Right.
Any moment for the first time when people didn't see something coming, and we kind of knew, but we set that container in such a way that, like, the structure was there, but that, like, all of the activities that and the magic that happens within that container or structure, is, we have no idea what will happen, and what does happen is like beyond our wildest dreams. Moments like when the tide first came in at Little Mexico, a little bit of beach, a secret little beach in Comox. It's really easy to find, and you can get to, if you know, and it's called Little Mexico. And when the
Mhm.
tide first came in, and we DJ'd into our knees in water, and just as the sun was going down, the tide goes slack, and those moments when we brought the boat through Carrington, or just these serendipitous moments, Hornby Island, the second year when the cops knew we were coming, and they were going to bust us for our beach party, except we had got a permit from parks. So when the cops came down to bust us, we had this permit, and we showed them the permit, and they let us go and let us keep going. And you know, lots of moments like that. So I live for those, and I live to create more of them. Justin Martin on the beach, just Pachena Bay in general on that first year, when re-experiencing that feeling of magic in people as they approach, seeing the struggle of humans, because I'm a tree planter for 20 years, and I'm actually kind of an asshole. If you really know me, you know I'm a bit of an asshole, and I kind of like seeing people suffer a little bit, and seeing the look of stress and fatigue and suffer on people's face as they arrive, and the stress of getting there, and then that release and that sort of sense of magic, and creating that perimeter, and that perimeter that can be hard to get through, natural boundaries, rivers, oceans, lakes, long dusty roads, long lineups to get in. But then once you're in, and once you're there, you're set, then it all is released. And reliving those magical moments through people is definitely some of the less quantifiable payment that I receive. And I think there's so many of those, and I think we can remember them, but we can also just do our best to take in the moment when it's good, and you can expand those moments. It's kind of like the practice of mindfulness, the what's his name there? I can't remember his name. It's escaping me, but he has that concept of freedom, and how freedom exists in the space between stimulus and response, like down on the deepest biological level, between like basically the stimulus and the response of your body, and that freedom exists within that space. So when something happens to you on the outside, that's the stimulus, and then the response, that's how you respond to the outside world. Or it could be the outside world as in your thoughts, your own thoughts, but how you respond to those things. That freedom exists within that space. So the longer you can make the space between stimulus and response, the larger freedom you have. And when that stimulus is beautiful, if you're able to elongate your response to that beauty, you're almost able to lock that moment in time, because you can kind of be there, present, and you can elongate your response to that stimulus, because instead of responding with, yeah, woo, you can just be there, and you can just practice elongating that positive experience. And the same goes with when something stimulates you on the outside in this world. Like, and I am not a teacher, or I am not a like good at this at all. I'm only saying it with words, but to be able to take more time between that stimulus and that response, to really think through how important that feeling is, or how important that situation or conversation or whatever is. And one of the ways that I try to make that space longer is I try to journal. And honestly, it's not good at all.
I have the same journal as you. I almost, yeah. I was like, where did you take that from?
I just like grabbed it from you through the.
Yeah. Like, wait a second, what's happening right now?
So anyway, I don't know. I kind of got lost there, but yeah, it works both ways, trying to elongate that space between stimulus and response, and hopefully I can continue to try to master that more and more. And I think what that is sort of bringing that, maybe not even getting to the point where you need to clear your mind, where you need to kind of get back to full brain functioning. You don't even get to that point where you get stimulated back to your, I'm not good with terminology, back to the lower back half of your brain, the end of your brainstem for triggered response, fight, flight, freeze kind of stuff. It's sort of yeah, the physical process, I think that might help with that is journaling. And that's what I've been trying to work on a lot, which I don't know. I think I'm not doing very good on it at it, but I'm gonna keep trying.
Yeah, yeah. And so I always, we hear these like standards like of things to do and try. Yoga is another one that's like really, really common. And I'm not so sure it's the actual thing necessarily as much as it is the trying and just like being consistent and having like some routine with it or not having routine with it, because some of that's like the part of it, like it's almost like a treat when I give myself the space to do it or not because I don't feel like it today. And so yeah, I mean obviously I like I journal a lot because I was quite shocked that you have the same one as me, but yeah, just having something for yourself to be selfish with that isn't necessarily like the time to have a cigarette, right? I always joke about like people go for a smoke break and I'm like, I'm going for a fresh air break, right? People are like, what are you talking about? I'm like, well,
I
it's
think
not.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I really think you nailed it. Something that you can have that you can be selfish about, because when I read back at this, I think, shut the fuck up. Like a lot of the time I think that I'm like, oh, did the person not listen to you, or did someone think like if I'm writing down things that bothered me and I look back a day later and I'm like, that seems so dumb. Like, why did I actually think? And again, this is not medical advice, and I'm not
Mhm.
any kind of professional, but I do think there's a place in this word for telling your emotions and telling yourself to shut the fuck up once in a while, in a way that is like not mean to yourself, not negative self-talk. Maybe that is the wrong term that works a little better for a dude that's born in 1980. But like maybe for someone else, it's a different way of saying it. But what it is like, whatever, let your emotions fly away like a bird or something. I don't know, whatever terminology like feels right to slightly discredit. And this is not like a thing for anyone that has like serious imbalances, but once in a while when it comes to interactions out in the world, the little things, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes telling yourself it doesn't really effing matter.
Yeah.
And I realize that a lot when I write it down in the book. I look at that and I go, that's so petty. I want to rip this page out so no one reads it. And I found that the one thing I did, because I'm sort of like whatever, is I wrote in the book at the beginning, that the thoughts within this journey are just that, thoughts within this
Yes.
journal are just that, they're thoughts. And often when we write stuff down, it's a process of processing, a slowing down of one thoughts into the physical to be incorporated into or rejected by oneself through analyzation.
Damn.
And that want me out of here? Yeah. So that um sorry, they just told me to move. So
No, it's okay.
that allowed me the opportunity to feel more comfortable about writing these words down that seemed kind of dumb, that I almost would be embarrassed for someone to read because it seems petty or it seems this or it seems dumb or whatever, but actually it really takes the power away from those words.
Yeah.
And it allowed me, um, writing that in the journal suddenly allowed me the freedom to just write those things down, and it takes away their power. It's a strange thing.
Yeah, no, yeah, I love that so much. When I did some training with FCSS, which is we did like suicide prevention training. And I know that that's a little heavier than like obviously just being able to give yourself permission to write things down. But the one thing that is super consistent with what you're saying and what they were saying was just giving the space for it to just be. Like it just say the things or do the things and just like that part's not the part that matters. It's just allowing it to happen and like be totally cool with it. And I think it's really important to like tell yourself what's up, because I mean, who knows you better than you? And honestly, like, man, I get hung up on some super petty stuff. I mean, everybody does, right? But knowing when to like shut that down, like we don't really need to be out here embarrassing ourselves all the time or disrespecting people or tearing people's lives up. And it doesn't even need to be that crazy, but at the same time, like to being, you know, being able to kind of like regulate yourself like that. Yeah, it's a powerful thing. It's a powerful thing. Like, and what's great is it's like, I say it's so powerful, but it's actually like the lack of power that's so cool about it. You don't need to have any sort of special training or tools or knowledge or anything like that. It's just a piece of paper and a pencil or a pen and a few minutes of your time. And I honestly think it makes a massive bit of difference. Yeah. Yeah. Shout out to journaling for sure. For sure. That's cool. Sorry, I just went on a little bit of a tangent, but it's just like,
no, it's great.
Yeah, it's so, and I don't think it gets talked about enough. Like, the same way that people are like, oh, I want to be a rapper, but don't do poetry. And I'm like, okay, you know, I mean, there's like smaller things you could do that would probably help.
It's kind of falls into similar categories, at least hip hop. And I'm not like a massive hip hop. Like I'm not like, I couldn't tell you like the history of like all the different, you know, but I'm a big fan of obviously musicality and people speaking strong messages and people speaking from the heart and from their experience in that format. And I often am very much drawn to, people that kind of get real about stuff and get, what's it called? Vulnerable in their writings. And I enjoy that in hip hop for sure.
Yeah, the culture does a really great job of kind of bringing you on like such a personal ride. And then not all genres do that. However, with electronic music, is that even the right term for like it as a whole? I guess EDM. Yeah.
Electronic music. I think sometimes if you say EDM, some kind of like underground people might think that's like a more mainstream term, but I mean,
okay.
I usually say electronic music, but EDM is 100% basically the same thing. And I think it's just doesn't really make a difference either way.
Okay. But I think, with EDM, I think it's not necessarily, obviously, it's not vulnerable in the lyrics. It's not their lyrics I would imagine most of the time, but it's vulnerable in a different sort of way because every experience that we have in the crowd is specific to us, obviously. Like even if people played the same set every single time, which I can't imagine, but even if they did, they're still getting a different response from the crowd. And so it's like so specific to like that. Just like you said, the sun is going and the earth is going. So you're never going to have that connection again, ever. It could be November 29th every year for the next 100 years. And it's never going to be the same November 29th. So I think electronic music is super neat in that way because it's always going to be this like really like intimate, vulnerable, like moment with people that I don't even know if it matters if you ever see them again, but you are, as a collective, you have all these individuals having the same experience. And I just think that's so neat because with genres like, you know, hip hop and stuff, it's a lot of people having, I don't want to say they're all having different experiences with the same music because they all take it home or to their car or to whatever. And then they get to like kind of pick it apart. But with electronic music, these people are having this collective moment together. And that is, I feel like it's kind of half of the situation. I don't know if that makes sense, but
no, it totally makes sense. I think you definitely can get lost. So let's just say some at different times, some people dance to remember, some people dance to forget as a cliche thing. And that people do different things at different times. I think that there's a very fundamental part of rave culture where people are, it's at first to the untrained eye, it may appear masturbatory or odd, especially to other generations. In the early on in rave, it was very odd to the other generations because people danced together. But if you were to stand back into human history a little further, you would notice like possibly more ceremonial and long form celebrations that would take place among various tribal cultures over the span of time, all the way back to Germanic tribal cultures as well, where you do have these gathering of tribes or gathering of people in large groups, and a celebration of sorts that takes place, and that throughout human history, it's often what I'm explaining has often been a substitute for war.
Yeah.
To a degree, although I don't think you could substitute war in human history, but that's a whole other podcast.
Yeah,
Let's
absolutely.
just say let's let's just say that when groups of people gather from different areas and come together for longer periods of time, I'm not talking a concert, I'm talking 3-4 days, 7 days, 3 to 7 days. Um, there is a sharing of ideas, a sharing of germs, possibly a sharing of genetics, um, and a bonding that takes place, and also a sharing of ideas and connections, networking, complex social sort of web of social connectivity that's based around positivity, and the fundamental positive power, for better or for worse, for Homo sapiens is our ability to cooperate. And to cooperate, we need to feel comfortable. We need to trust one another. So I do think that gathering in groups and dancing all night actually is as old as humanity, and has been and is still, into some, maybe not still, but has been in the past, a substitute for war, or at least produces the positive outshoots that do come from war sometimes, which is a smashing of genetics, a smashing of ideas, a smashing of technologies, a smashing of germs, a smashing of genetics, which has been fundamentally, over the long term, probably a good thing for humans. As a very, very broad way, obviously, I'm talking very broad here. So I do think, I'm sorry, I'm getting there, that when people close their eyes together on the dance floor and they come together and they feel the vibration of the earth and they contribute to that vibration, and when humans get together, we cooperate and our hearts tune into one another. We actually tune into the vibration of the planet, and we can learn from it, or we can teach it, or whatever words you want to use. We can communicate, we can give, we can receive. We can, whatever series of words you want to use for the interaction between us, nature, and the planet, does and can take place on the dance floor in that moment. And everybody knows it. Everybody knows the value of it when they're there. Anyone that's ever been there, they know the value of that intrinsically. They may have a different explanation for it, and that's totally cool. But anyone that's been there knows. And that's rave, baby.
Yeah, that's yeah. Like what's so, oh my God, I don't think it's been said better. Not on this show, anyways. And the picture that you painted, I was sitting here thinking, like, we look at all these cultures that do this all the time, and we're like, oh, it's such a beautiful ceremony, or there must be something so massive to it, and oftentimes there is, because that is really massive. But there is nothing strange about any of the things that you were just explaining. Like it's so necessary and fundamental, and I don't know why we even look at that organism as anything less than magical and necessary, period. I don't know why we yeah, it's oh yeah, absolutely.
I feel it for sure. It feels good. Like I have that feeling in my body. So that is the why. That is one of the ways that I'm resilient. And why I've been able to be resilient over the long term, is because I'm very, very sturdy on that why.
Right.
Now, there's a lots of hows that make it possible, and it's very difficult to make something like this a business. Like, it's so dangerous throwing festivals. You just get financially destroyed, in the wrong situation. But again, to sort of bring it back around to something that seemed like was part of the point of this conversation, was resilience. When you have that why, then it gives you that strength to go through those difficult times. I mean, you need to be careful that your why is not being executed in a way that you're just setting yourself up to be like, you need to have some like logic in whatever you're doing as well. And one thing that supported me, and one thing that I sometimes when I look to some people who are 20 years younger than me, I feel a little worried because like I always had tree planting, and it was like everyone out in the tree planting didn't care about the DJing. Everyone in the DJ world didn't care about the tree planting. It was two different worlds. It was a place where I was just like forced into just working hard and just grinding my body, and just I made good money doing it. And I was always able to sort of follow things in the off season. And that job allowed me the opportunity to remain somewhat stable,
Right.
because resilience is about like not blowing up the bank account. Resilience is about like having process and strategic ways to sort of not get yourself, pardon me, fucked over by this
Yep.
crazy bloody world of devaluing currencies. And I'm not going to go off on another tangent because we don't, I think, have time. But the point is that every individual needs to be at their best to achieve those things that make them spark. And you need to do the things that make you spark, because if you're doing the things that make you spark, you're naturally going to do them with great vigor and great. But you also need to make sure that like your timing is correct. And is there another way that you can be feeling sparked if the way that you think is the thing that sparks you is actually like going to be a dead end? That you need to be hard on yourself and make sure that you're creating a structure that you can exist, because when things go down and you don't have a good structure to back yourself up, like a couple bucks in the bank account or whatever, you're just so much more affected by the election or the this or the that. And resilience is like not self marginalizing yourself as well. Resilience is also like making sure to get yourself covered, you know,
Yeah.
do the
Yeah.
things you need to do to remain in balance. That is what part of, anyway,
No, you're right.
yeah.
No, no, no. It's not anyway. It's you're absolutely right. It's crazy. Someone said it bothers me that you don't worry about gas prices. And I'm like, okay, well, that's unfortunate for you, I suppose. But I don't worry about gas prices because one, I actually can't do anything in this present moment to affect gas prices in a grand way that's going to somehow change the course of the next 5 minutes. So here we are. But also like I put a lot of sweat equity. I listen, tree planting, that's not for me. I worked at a tree nursery for like 2 minutes. I completely respect it. I was thinning. That's not planting. Either way, it is absolutely grueling. So the fact that you did that is amazing. Um, but I don't worry about gas prices because I have the foundation to make sure that everything. I really love bartending. I really love working front of house. I really love, event coordinating. I really love all these other things that I can contract myself out to do. And I do all of that so that I don't have to worry about gas prices in the same way. Like, yeah, being resilient has absolutely not a whole lot to do with being strong and powerful, but resourceful and kind to yourself. Like, if I don't feel like scrubbing the toilets, then I'm going to find something to do to make that $25 to pay somebody else to do that, if that's so how I value my time. And I think a lot of people gets lost along the way, right? Everyone wants the luxury of being comfortable, and that's not one that's never going to stand the test of time, but it definitely sets yourself up for a lot of discomfort because you're constantly wanting everything to be perfect. I can't change gas prices. Is it uncomfortable? Yeah, probably. I don't know. I couldn't tell you what they were, but I don't allow myself the time to think about it because it's not going to make a whole lot of difference. And yeah, I
Yeah,
completely.
that's sort of like the, is it like the sort of stoic way? It's sort of like, you things you can't control
Mhm.
are you can only really worry about them so much. But also, I think that's where wisdom is too, is like, you know, being able to decipher the things you can and can't control and affect, and the time scale at which one is planning to affect something. For example, you can affect society quite dramatically through writing.
Mhm.
Because often, if you look at books that influence to the positive or the negative, obviously, but you can look at books, and often what happens is you have someone that wrote something, and then a generation or sometimes two generations later kind of pick that up and kind of start to implement it. You need to sometimes an idea needs to be removed by a generation or two. before it gets picked up. Of course, the generation that picks it up 2 generations later maybe don't pick it up in the way that the original person had intended, because it's a different world that everyone lives in 2 generations later. But that you can do some dramatic change in this world, but you'll never know if you did it, because you'll probably be dead. You'll be dead by the time that change happens. So
Right.
again, you gotta deploy some level of stoicism to it, I guess.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't know. Yeah, it's yeah.
I love the idea of you thinking about that. Like, that's such a cool thought to think, like, yeah, I mean, even your journal that you were talking about, like if you lost that, somewhere. I've lost a lot of scrapbooks along the way, and I always like think, if someone picks this up, and I mean, honestly, they could, who knows? I think, the things that you write now, exactly, like if they aren't necessarily taken the way that you wrote them, but they definitely have the power to do all the things for people later on. Before we go, I'm thinking about this theory that I had one time called sacred ratio, but we're not going to get into that because it's not the same topic and it is a whole other podcast. But it's like this, it's this note scrapbook somewhere that I lost, like, along the way, and I'm like, oh, someone's going to pick it up and think that it's like teachings from an alien or something like that. But anyways, before we go, can you let me in on how you feel about all ages events and what it is to kind of not necessarily pass the torch, but maybe because a lot of events nowadays are 19 or 18 plus, and so what that looks like for you.
Yeah. Well, I think now I would say that, like, what we do is like pretty top level, like all ages, in terms of family. I think that, I mean, okay, like just from like just a blunt side, the like 14 to 18 age category is a tough one. And I try to actually kind of, to a degree, keep that number down. I never believe in like trying to exclude a demographic or a number, but I try to keep that energy and number to a degree down, because there's a compounding, cascading sort of liability issue with that particular age category. And it's not just like socially, it's also like from an evolutionary biology standpoint, like the risk reward centers are all messed up at that age. And for, proper evolutionary purposes, which again, another podcast. And yeah, so that age category you want to have at a much lower number, enough that you are still having an impact, though, that you're still, that kid is actually, that 14, 15, 16 year old actually able to enter into the environment as though they were an adult ish, and being accepted into that space more as an adult, but being grossly outnumbered by like the real adults. That energy does not dominate. So if you have 14, if you have the 14 to 18 category at your event, and then you have a dominant force of 20 to 30, you're getting into like those two together. I find you need to be careful. I'm saying mathematically, because humans aren't math, but like, I'm very
Totally.
generally speaking.
Yep.
So you want to have the right number of parents and kids, because kids are like a harm reduction piece as well, especially young ones, because they just wake up early no matter what, which causes kids to be in the space early morning, which causes the production to make sure that at daybreak things are clean, and that the people that are sort of milling around, that night before energy, that part of that organism hasn't quite realized, okay, it's time. And the kids are like a new blood cell coming into the space, like being all like different and like reorganizing the organism. And at that point, those other cells, those other people energies, they go, oh wait, whoa, look at this kid. And there's like, I got to get out of here. Or there's a fun sort of connection of joyous, jovial piece where these young kids get to really enjoy a genuine childlike experience with some of the riffraff that are left from the night before, that are totally fine, beautiful people, whatever, right? So you have a few things that can go on there. The opportunity for that older person to kind of break into that childlike way that some people that don't have kids don't get to do that. People with kids get to kind of play a little bit again when you're an adult, but when you're an adult without kids, you don't necessarily, you kind of lose play maybe. So there's an opportunity there. And also, yeah, it signals to some people, hey, it's time to go to sleep. So it acts as its own harm reduction. It acts as its own young kids and families act as its own regulator at the event. So you want to have a nice dose of that too. You want to have a number of people who really know the space, who will be like security or harm reduction, but they just aren't wearing it. And they are the type of people that will be where they need to be when they need to be there. And then you need a number of people who have just been there for the first time, because you want that magic of, I've never been here, whoa. But you don't want to have too much of the magic, because then you have too many people that haven't been there and you don't have enough like physical grounding in the space. So it's an interesting little soup of different numbers of people that I think creates a nice synergy of energy that causes that organism to have a nice balance. And I think we've always wanted parents to have fun. We always didn't put kid zones off to the side. We always put the kid zones close to where a parent could get a beer, or where they could clearly see the stage. Maybe not blaring with the sound, but clearly have a good, so they can feel like they're enjoying the event. A sort of parent-centric look at an all ages family event.
Very cool. Very cool. Congratulations on all of your success. I mean, listening to you today, I absolutely understand why. It's clear that you go out of your way to make sure that, everybody is having not only like, an experience, but something that's going to stick with them for a long time. And what's really cool is that you also seem to get something out of it. And I understand that it's not always about, the cash or the vibes or whatever, but I've never quite heard it be put the way that you said it today. Even, I've asked lots of people about, 18, 19 plus events, and never once really thought about it as a harm reduction tool. Obviously we talk about like, parents are there and they're not going to drink as much, but to, paint a picture of, people like I just, sitting on the beach, chatting with the young kids and them having this experience, like the layers that you're offering people and continue to give people is just absolutely outstanding. And I just can't say enough good things. I appreciate your time so much, and I appreciate you coming and hanging out. Is there anything that you want to let the people know before we sign off?
Well, just that like, it takes so many people to make things good, and I am obviously often a focal point. And I do a lot, and I do put a lot of heart into it, and I do risk myself a lot, so I do deserve praise. But that like and I accept it, and I'm thankful. Thank you to you for saying that, and to people that may feel it out there. But obviously, there's so many people in the fray over the years and currently there that just make all of the things happen. My wife and Dallas and Zig, and really this list of coordinators goes on and on and on. And just the people that hold me accountable, and the people that forgive me when I do things not the right way. That's just, I'm thankful for all of those things that are truly the things that bind everything together. So thank you for having me on here. It seems funny to sort of plug something at the end.
No, plug away.
I want people to know, who are listening, that there will be some Pachena tickets released. We're just getting all of our teams totally in order, and there'll be a few more weekend passes released. But if you want to take part, or if you suddenly feel like, whoa, some of the things that I said resonate, or you're like, hey, I can be one of those people that, when the chaos hits and everything seems perfect and everything's like, yay, I can be one of those people that extends that space between stimulus and response, and forgoes that euphoric moment of togetherness to stop and to look around and to see, has someone slipped through the cracks? Does someone need help? If someone out there feels like they are that, or can be that, or to reach out and take part, or just attend the events. And when you're there, be that person that needs to be where they need to be when they need to be there. Relax and allow yourself to be in that space, and then all of the little pieces of the organism will organize themselves in the perfectest way.
Yes.
And also, I put this back here so I didn't forget. We do have a little new adventure.
Very cool.
That we're going to be doing. It's a little saltier. It's a little colder, but we're going to get real cozy out there. It's a little more of a focus, a little bit more toward live music, but it's all dance centric and DJs, of course, but more on that live music side of the spectrum. And I just want to thank everyone over the years who may or may not be out there listening, and just want to send my gratitude to you and for what you're doing. I've enjoyed this conversation. So thank you, and I hope you keep it up.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate you saying that. Calico did throw the Pachena Bay Music Festival website link in the comments for everybody, so you guys can go and check that out for volunteering, or like you said, that there might be a couple tickets popping up or whatever. Definitely go over there and just check out the website. There's tons of really cool information on it. Once again, thank you so much for hanging out with us today. It does make a massive difference. To those in the comments, I see you, we see you. We appreciate you. And to those who are going to check it out later, go listen to some EDM, you guys. Honestly, until we see you, I guess it's Friday today, but we will see everybody next Tuesday. Until then, stay safe.
Blood, my pride washed down with some saliva. Reinvented my whole life, mental MacGyver. One door shut, another open up. Rider, listen. Battle drums in the distance, moving with enough force like army tank pistons. Pray for the strength of Jah to fight resistance. Fight mode, shields up, moving with resilience.
With the strength of 1,000 lion and the strength of 1,000 giant, please stay strong. Please stay strong. With the strength of 1,000 elephant and the strength of 1,000 tiger, we stay strong. We stay strong. We stay strong.
The further you take my rights away, I'ma run to it, refuse to hear my voice. Speak loud when I spit it, but you don't get it. You just wanna be a side critic. See somebody else showing hate in the side of the road with it. Now how would you feel standing on the sideline and watch the color of a nation deteriorate over time? The flag real high, but compassion 6 feet below. Now you're searching for that justice that decided to never show. Deny my place and back with a trace. Keep up the pace, tight lace, game face, get back in the race. Whatever they did could never be undone. Every dark night ends with the rising of the sun. Squandered every wealth that's built from the mud. Squandered every wealth that's built from the blood. Squandered every wealth that's built in chains. Stolen from the ancestors, running through my veins.
With the strength of 1,000 lion and the strength of 1,000 giant, please stay strong. Please stay strong. With the strength of 1,000 elephant and the strength of 1,000 tiger, we stay strong. We stay strong. We stay strong.
I can see, run to the light at the end of the tunnel winner.
We stay strong.
I can't breathe, we're gonna get oxygen without the justice system.
We stay strong.
And I know, gotta keep my head together.
We stay strong.
Don't doubt me, please don't doubt me.
We stay strong.
Tell me how can we be strong if we still shooting? Tell me how can we be strong if we still looting? Tell me how can we be strong if we still hating? Please tell me now, please tell me now. Tell me how can we be strong if we're still divided? Tell me how can we be strong with egos inflated? Tell me how can we be strong with so much hunger? Please tell me now. Please tell me
that. The strength of 1,000 lion and the strength of 1,000 giant, please stay strong. Please stay strong. With the strength of 1,000 elephant and the strength of 1,000 tiger, we stay strong. We stay strong. We stay strong.
The more you try to keep me down and keep my head above the water, you can never hold me down. The more you try to block me out, that's where I kick the wall down. You can never hold me back. The more you try to put me out, the more I'll be blazing, it's too hot. The more you try to put me in the
Just wandering around.
All right,
Yeah.
enjoy your browsing.
Thanks, man.
I don't know what the heck. Oh, I didn't want to end. Are you still there? Oh, hey.
Yeah, I was just waiting for the thing to end or whatever, but
Yeah.
I'm in a store now.
Oh. Yeah, thank you so much for hanging out. That was wicked. Super cool. I could talk with you for hours. There's so many things that I was like, oh, I want to go down that rabbit hole, but
Yeah, me too. Like I feel like most of the people I work with have heard all of my extended rants, and like all of that type of subject matter kind of like is built into what we do, and it's nice to sort of say it out loud. It feels good, and I like to keep talking about it and thinking about it in as many ways as possible. But yeah.
Well, if you ever want to come back on, just we'll make that happen for sure. Like I think the way that you explain things is so poetic and interesting, and not only are they valuable, but also like creates thoughts as well. Like it's very thought provoking, and it definitely left there like the conversation being like, oh, wait a second, I want to go and research that, or I want to go read about that, or whatever. So yeah.
No, that's good. I'm glad. I love things that are going to provoke thought, because I do spend a lot of time thinking, and it's nice to imagine other people thinking and then elaborating on various thoughts. And yeah, it's a good thing. So thank you for helping amplify that, because it's also something maybe my daughter might watch one day and understand me a little differently, you know, that she might not get from a conversation or something. So I appreciate it as well.
Oh, I'm so glad. Yeah, I'm so glad. All right. Well, on that note, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go and check on my baby. But you enjoy the rest of your day. And if there's anything that I can do to help with anything, just let us know.
Sounds great. Have a great day, and all the best to you.
Okay, cool. Thank you.